Hello, today is Friday, February 5th, 2021. I'm Joe Schmidt from TC2, and this is Staying Connected. On today's podcast, I'm joined by Deb Boehling, a partner at LB3, and by my fellow TC2 director, Julie Gardner. This will be part one of a two-part series where we discuss the impact of COVID-19 on enterprises. And today we'll highlight what your network needs probably are now in this current COVID and post-COVID world. And surprise, it's probably not what it used to be. Okay, Deb and Julie, thanks for joining me today. So Julie, let me start with you. I'm interested to hear about the network changes that you're seeing as a result of COVID-19 and how enterprises can manage those changes to save money.
Oh, thanks, Joe. It's hard to believe it's been a year since COVID-19 began impacting the way most of our enterprise customers do business. There really has been a fundamental shift in the work environment as most organizations had to quickly migrate to that work from home model that we are still seeing today. This shift has had numerous downstream impacts on costs, everything from licensing and conferencing to circuit sizing, and even the global real estate needs of our enterprise customers, just to name a few. We've seen some companies manage these impacts very well, and we've seen some that have really lagged. Today, we're going to give you some tips on how your organization can seek to reduce costs by managing these changes.
All right, tips are good. So, Deb, what have you got?
Well, thanks, Joe, for letting me join you. It's been a while. And I'll start with the licensing and conferencing needs and how those have really evolved during this pandemic. Clearly, enterprises have had to provide an ability for users to collaborate and communicate in the work from home environment. Of course, initially that meant making sure users had the ability to make and receive calls from home. We saw large spikes in licensing and usage for WebEx and Zoom. Clients that were utilizing either a named host or an active host model saw an increase in the number of licenses that they needed. The number of call attendees also soared, meaning that overage charges occurred in many cases. Many of our clients didn't realize that a WebEx call has a participant limit based on the license type. This can generate overage charges every time a call exceeds the max capacity based on the license.
That's exactly right, Deb. And spotting those overage charges isn't always easy when you're looking at your bill. You really have to understand how your bill presents to identify them. If you're getting hit with those excessive overage charges, you can lock down the call capacity so that participants over the limit can't join. Or you can upgrade your licenses to accommodate the increase in the call capacity needs that you're seeing these days. But you definitely need to understand the volume of calls, your average participants per call, and which hosts are driving the overages. You really need to compare this to your license types. You know how many people you're currently contemplating on a per call basis. Overage charges may not seem like they would be that material, but in reality, the overage charge per participant costs more than the monthly WebEx license in most cases. And for some of our clients, overages were running in the hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. And just like those overage charges, the conferencing needs have really increased. So you're likely seeing a spike in your conferencing of all flavors, from that basic unattended conferencing call all the way up to those event conferencing calls, which have your operators and moderators. Because this may be new or a much bigger expense for your organization, it's really a good idea to review your usage trends and identify your most expensive calling types and countries. You should benchmark those and seek to reduce those costs with your service provider, especially as the work from home model continues into this next year.
I think it's pretty easy to see how work from home would have really impacted those service costs. But what about on the data side?
Well, Joe, on the data side, circuit utilization has really changed, whether it's an MPLS circuit, an internet circuit, or an SD-WAN circuit. For some companies, usage has gone down dramatically. For others, it may have increased. As an enterprise, you should be keeping up on how COVID has impacted your utilization at the circuit level and whether your contracts will allow you to do something about those charges. Practically, this means you need to understand what minimum commitments are. Do you have circuit-specific minimum commitments? A lot of times, for example, there are regular port charges and there are usage charges. There may also be flexible billing options, but even the flexible billing options for internet circuits may no longer fit. The question is, can you adjust the port size or the minimum speed of the flexible option without incurring any liability? And how do you affect those types of changes?
Yeah, really good point, Deb. And we're seeing a lot of our clients actively managing their bandwidth by downgrading their ports when they see that utilization has dropped. And that's really what we've seen across most clients. Utilization has gone down, and they're able to decrease their costs by ramping those ports back down. There are a few situations where they've had to increase port speeds, and that can happen as well up to that underlying access bandwidth that you have. But reducing port speeds for that unneeded bandwidth as we ride out the pandemic is really a great way to reduce your costs. But as Deb pointed out, you really need to understand how your contract will or won't support that and run the math. You wouldn't want to downgrade a circuit only to find out you had a minimum payment period that will eat up most of all of your savings and then some.
All right, thanks, Julie. So is there anything else on the data side that companies should be looking for?
With the changes in bandwidth requirements that Julie mentioned, you may suddenly find yourself needing speeds that your current contract didn't really contemplate when you did it. You may not have worried too much about negotiating certain speeds because, well, you didn't really see a pandemic in our future. It's a good time to look at your utilization, figure out what speeds you need to cover in the next 6 months to a year, and determine if you need to add negotiated rates for your contract to match those needs. That may be on the lower end, as Julie mentioned, because many clients expect it to grow, not to fall in usage.
Okay, so we've touched on licensing. We've looked at conferencing and data circuits. Hey, what about global real estate?
Well, that's a loaded question for sure. Because of work from home, we're seeing more and more of our clients really rethinking their global real estate needs. They're asking questions like, can these sites be downsized? Can we consolidate? Or maybe we need to close some of our facilities and really look at our future policies in regards to work from home. This is all really evolving. And it definitely impacts your network and the network costs both today and tomorrow. Also, I think it's important to understand these needs in the context of transformation projects. Most of our clients are currently in the midst of some form of transformation, and your global real estate changes really will impact these plans. So you wouldn't necessarily want to order services for a site that's closing or downsizing or is going to have dramatically different network requirements in the context of your transformation projects. It's really important that you understand where you're going with your global real estate plan and how those plans need to be layered into those transformation projects.
And as an attorney, changes in your global real estate footprint that impact your spend need to be documented and understood in the context of your contract. We'll talk more about how COVID will impact your current and your future state contracting needs in part 2 of our series.
Okay, thanks, Deb, and thank you as well, Julie. I'm really looking forward to us recording part 2 to talk about those contracting needs. But in the meantime, if you do have questions about what we've covered here today, you can contact Deb, Julie, me, or any of our LB3 and TC2 colleagues by giving us a call or dropping us an email. If you want to stay current, you can always subscribe to Staying Connected because it is available on many platforms like Google Play, Apple, and Spotify. And we also encourage you to check out our websites at TC2 and LB3 and to follow us on LinkedIn.